This is Stephen A. Williams, President and founder of the CreditRepairShop.com. And in today's video, we're going to talk about validation of debt. This is according to the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act with the amendment from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. These are the requirements of what debt collectors must do to be able to come after you for a debt. Now, I've always talked about when debt collectors are coming after you, you have a right to validate the debt. That's, everybody knows about that. But there's details within the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act that debt collectors are violating uh, just about with every debt collection letter that they send out to people. And what we do here at the Credit Repair Shop is that we always ask our clients to get us those debt validation letters because we want to review them to see if they have some of these potential violations. Because if they have those violations in their debt collection letter to you, it's going to make it easier for that debt to go away. Or if it is proven 100%, then it could put you in a better position to be able to make a settlement on the debt. And then even taking it up a notch from there, if they try to sue you, you are actually putting together a good paper trail of evidence when it comes to having them sue you in court to prove that you have given them the opportunity to get information to you that is required according to the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. So now let's look at this. I'm not going to go through the entire the entire notice for validation of debt. And I'm going to put this link here so if you want to review it. But I want to I've kind of made some notes here on some points that I want you uh, be aware of because this is going to help you. If you have debt collectors coming after you for debts that they've purchased from original creditors, this information is going to be very important for you to pay attention to because they could be violating your rights or violating the rules that are set up in the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act by sending you information about a debt that they're trying to collect and they're doing it the wrong way. So first, let's look at this here. This clear and conspicuous. This is required when they are communicating about a debt with you. They cannot be vague about it. They cannot try to make things look bigger in some sections and smaller in the other ones. Like when you're looking at the contracts when you're like buying a car or something and they have that small print. Well, they cannot do that with a debt validation letter, or they can't do it with a what's called a dunning letter. When a debt collector sends you a letter saying that you know you for a debt that they've purchased, it's called a dunning letter. And when they send that dunning letter, it has to be clear and conspicuous. So now that means that it must be readily understandable in the case of a written electronic disclosure. The location and type size must be readily noticeable and legible to consumers. Although no minimum type size is mandated, when they're saying that the font size, you see this, how you can see this word here, this is the font size. In the case of an oral disclosure, disclosure must be given at a volume and speed sufficient for the consumer to hear and comprehend them. So, when a debt collector, let me give you an example. This happens a lot with debt that is past the legal statute of limitations to collect. What they will usually say is that they will call people up and they will say that this is such and such debt collection company and we're trying to communicate with you or we're trying to get in touch with you about a debt that you previously held with so and so company, and we must inform you that this is a time barred debt, and that any information that we get from you will be used to collect that debt. Now, let me tell you the key word, time barred. They don't say statute of limitations because they know that if they said statute of limitations, your antennas would go up, but they are allowed to say time barred. But when they say this, they have to say it in a speed that's sufficient for consumers to hear and comprehend. So if we flip that around and we say, well, I received a debt collection letter from you, or I received a call from you, and the way that your representative communicated that information to me, I was not able to understand and comprehend the information that was being given to me. And I want you to uh, either give me a call back, or I want you, well, really, I prefer for them to always send stuff to you in writing so you can kind of really break down what their response is. So you can say, I want you to communicate with me in writing, but I want you to send me all of the information pertaining to this debt. So now let's go on to the next section. So this is very important. You can utilize this information right here to make sure that they are following the rules by just not giving you a letter that has one section talking about the debt and then the section that talks about you being able to dispute any or all of the debt, that's not in some type of small print section. Or if they call you, they must disclose this information here, that you do have a right to dispute any or all of the debt, and that if you have any dispute, they need to tell you how you can get that information over to them. Okay, now here's another section. And while I was away for the weekend, I was reviewing. I'm always reading different cases that might have came up to see how debt collectors are either violating the rules, or how debt collectors are being, uh, or losing in court to either attorneys that are consumer attorneys. And one of the things that I had found was this safe harbor. So now let's just read here. It says, in general, a debt collector who provides a validation notice that is either a notice described, and this is, if you look at this section, this is the debt, the dunning letter that is sent to people who they have purchased the debt from. It does not, and so it says here, nor a uh, substantially similar notice as described in, and it breaks that down in here, does not receive a safe harbor for compliance with the information and the form required. So basically, to break this down, the CFPB, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, it has a standard on what debt collectors are supposed to provide in a dunning letter that is sent to anyone who they're trying to collect a debt from. And what debt collectors have tried to do from time to time is that they have prepared documents, and they would say, well, we didn't know that the information that we had placed in there was not true, and so we can't be held responsible. We did rectify that with the individual that we purchased their debt from, and we have rectified that situation. So there's no harm, no foul. Well, what they're stating with the CFPB and the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, they're saying that no, there is no safe harbor just because you rectified something, because of what we just stated earlier. The understanding of the individual who is receiving that letter, the way that they take that information, could substantially change the way that they react to that notification. So if you're making a letter to an individual who you're trying to collect the debt from, and then you send them back information that has been deemed to be untrue, you, the debt collector, cannot try to play it off and say, hey, there's no harm, no foul. The information that we sent back about the debt, about the payments that were made that we didn't really know about, or the credits or adjustments, all of that stuff, we didn't know about it. So there's no harm, no foul. Even though the letter that we sent out was a validation response to what the consumer asked for. And now that they have proof, we can just, run away and say, hey, there's no harm, no foul, and we can move on to someone else. No, this specifically states that there's no protection if they're caught doing that. Now, a lot of people don't take them to court over this. What people will normally do is just say, hey, cease all collection activities if you're found to not be compliant with that. So I wanted to make you aware of that section, and I think that you should read up on that. This is something that we do put in our, that we watch out for when we get responses back from debt collectors, that we do direct furnisher request debt validations to debt collectors for our clients. Now, the next thing that is very important when it comes to doing a validation of debt or verification of debt is that the amount of the debt on an itemized date. This is something that we've utilized when we have put together our information that people have used to be able to fight debt collectors in court. This same information can be utilized to fight debt collectors with your initial debt validation letter. Most people with debt validation letters, what they will usually do is just fight back and forth about the debt that is owed. What you need to pay attention to, and some of the times they state it in the debt validation letter, most of the times they don't. They just usually stick towards the amount and the original creditor. Is that you have the right, according to the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, to make any debt collection company prove the claimed amount. That means that any fees, interest, charges that they claim that you owe, the payments that were credited to your account, you have the right to request all of that information when you do a verification of debt. Of course, they don't want you to get into that, because if you do that, they're going to find it very difficult to get all of that information to prove the debt. See, basically, what they want you to do is they just want you to go back and forth about the debt that they've purchased. Do you owe us $5,000? If you don't, they try to get you to either dispute that you don't owe it at all or that you do owe it. That's where they want you to stay in that little box there. What I tell people to do is to think outside of the box, and you want them to prove their entire claim. So if they say you owe $5,000, debt collection company, please tell me how you came up with that total amount. Don't just send me a couple of statements. Don't just send me one of the bills that you got from the original creditor. I want you to give me every charge to substantiate that $5,000. And oh, while you're doing that, I want you to get an itemized, detailed itemized accounting statement showing every payment, every charge, everything that was done from day one. And this is also something that you can do even if it was something like an automobile loan. Let's just say that you had an automobile loan and it got foreclosed on, and uh, they purchased a debt. That debt, what's called a deficiency amount. Well, one of the things that they don't even normally, that some of them don't provide. I don't want to say normally, that some of the times has not been provided, and there's been recent clients that have ran into this, is that you would want to get the auction statement from the original creditor. You would want to get the original contract from the original creditor who financed that vehicle. You would want to scan that to see if there was any type of credit insurance that would either pay payments or anything on the vehicle if the vehicle was to go into default. You would want to get all of that stuff, and you would want to get any itemized payments or any credits or anything that was given to the original creditor that to where they came up with that deficiency balance. They can't just have a deficiency balance and they don't show you the auction statement. They don't show you what was done with the vehicle. We have a gentleman that I spoke with about a couple of weeks ago, and this is exactly what happened to him. His vehicle was actually towed away by a tow company because he left it on at a parking lot because he could not. He just didn't feel safe driving the car. Something was wrong with it. The car got towed and it was taken into a tow lot. They said it was going to take $1,500 to get the car back. He was like, "Hey, the car isn't even really worth to me to him, he said it's not worth getting it out, that there's something wrong with it, and that would the tow company take the vehicle for the amount that he owed. And they said yes, they would. And he said that he thought that everything was all said and done and it was gone, and he would vehicle would be gone, and he would end up just paying the remaining amount on the vehicle to the uh, no, he didn't owe anything to the company, to the lending company. I'll take that back. But he would end up just saying, hey, it just broke even, pay the car would be utilized to pay the ticket and to pay the towing fees. Well, all of a sudden he got a bill in the mail that was for double the amount of of what the ticket was, and it was by a debt from a debt collection company. And he was like, "How do you get to this amount?" And so they were just saying, "Hey, this is the amount of it." And here's the crazy part: he didn't get his vehicle back. So they're trying to say he owes double the amount with the debt collection company that was trying to come after him. So they're saying he owes double the amount of the money, and he didn't even get the car back. So I told him, you have a right to get all of that information about what, number one, was done with the vehicle. Did they sell it at auction? Did they keep it, or did they crush it and sell it for scrap, which scrap is going for a good amount? You have a right to get that. So that would be where they would have to give you an itemized receipt of what happened with that vehicle. And every time that I talk about repossessions with it always brings up one of the clients that I had when I first started the credit repair shop, and it was a lady. She was in her almost 70 years old, and her husband had passed away, and he had bought a new Cadillac before he passed away, and she got stuck with the vehicle. She ended up giving the vehicle back, and when we did the validation of debt, we found out that the vehicle had sold for almost what he had owed on the vehicle. And it was basically like about $2,000, 2,500. And she being a woman of her word, she said that she wanted to work out something with the debt. She didn't want to run away. She wanted to pay the debt that she owed, that were really that her late husband owed. And so we ended up working out a deal. But before that, they were coming after her for more than, I believe, it's been a while, but about ten to $12,000, somewhere in that number. And when we did the verification of debt with the collector that was actually collecting it for the lender, this was a debt that actually was not sold to a debt collector. They had just hired a debt collector to come after her, and then she found our company, the credit repair shop, and came into the office. And I said, I'm going to help you with this. I don't know how it's going to end up, but I'm not going to just leave it at that. Especially when someone expresses that they don't believe that that's the amount of money that they owe, but they just can't kind of comprehend where the issue is. And what we do here at the credit repair shop is that we just go on this fact finding mission, to where we're like, we want to get all of the information from whoever has it. If we can get it from original creditors, if we can get it from debt collectors, so we can see what's the next way, the next phase of moving forward. So you have a right. So according to this right here, this Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, this is amendment with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, is that you have a right to get all of the information pertaining to a debt. They cannot just send you a statement. They can't do that. They need to give you an itemized information about any debt that they're trying to collect from you. All right. So I'm going to put the link for this here. There's other sections that you can utilize to help you be able to fight back against debt collectors, to make them prove that you owe a debt. So if you need help with your credit, please visit us at thecreditrepairshop.com. Watch the video what makes us different. So you can see my 8-point validation process and my two-phase settlement process. If you need your credit reports and scores, go to the website, your3scores.com, to grab your TransUnion, Equifax, Experian credit reports and all 3 scores. If you have debt collectors coming after you, grab my 3-pack of letters: statute of limitations letter, debt validation letter, and cease and desist collection activities letter. The instructions are on those letters, so you can utilize the one that pertains to your specific situation. I do ask for a donation on those because it helps me monetize my time here on YouTube. And those letters can literally save you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, and a lot of pain and frustration and headaches from dealing with debt collectors. Thank you for your time. This is Stephen A. Williams, President.